Welcome back to the English Hour. Today, we have Jacob with us to discuss a topic many people find challenging: how to stay motivated during difficult times.
Thanks for having me, Sophia. Motivation can be tricky, especially when life throws unexpected challenges our way.
Absolutely, Jacob. Many listeners struggle to keep their motivation high when things aren't going their way. What do you think is the first step in staying motivated?
I believe the first step is understanding your why, knowing the deeper reason behind your goals. When you're clear about why something matters, it's easier to push through obstacles.
That's a great point. How can someone discover their why if they're feeling lost or confused?
Reflecting on what truly brings you joy or fulfillment is key. Sometimes journaling or talking with a trusted friend helps clarify what's important.
I like that. Once someone knows their why, how do they keep the fire burning on tough days?
Setting small, achievable goals can help. When you break big tasks into bite-sized steps, it feels less overwhelming and keeps you moving forward.
So, celebrating small wins is important.
Definitely. Recognizing progress, no matter how small, builds momentum and confidence.
What about when someone faces setbacks or failures? How can they stay motivated then?
It's crucial to reframe failure as a learning opportunity rather than a defeat. Every setback teaches us something valuable.
That's a powerful mindset shift. Can you share an example from your own life?
Sure, I once failed a big project at work. Instead of giving up, I analyzed what went wrong, adjusted my approach, and came back stronger with better results.
That's inspiring. How can listeners develop that kind of resilience?
Building resilience starts with self-compassion, being kind to yourself when things go wrong, and maintaining a growth mindset that embraces challenges.
What are some practical habits to cultivate self-compassion?
Simple things like positive self-talk, mindfulness meditation, and reminding yourself that everyone makes mistakes.
Mindfulness seems to be a recurring theme in personal development. Why do you think it's so effective?
Because it anchors you in the present moment, reducing anxiety about the past or future, which often drains motivation.
How long should someone practice mindfulness to notice benefits?
Even 5 to 10 minutes a day can make a difference if done consistently.
That's doable for most people. Now, let's talk about motivation in daily life. What habits help keep motivation steady day after day?
Establishing a morning routine sets a positive tone for the day. Also, regular exercise, healthy eating, and sufficient sleep support mental energy.
Those are foundational. What about social support?
Surrounding yourself with positive, encouraging people creates an environment that nurtures motivation.
Can you talk about accountability and its role in motivation?
Accountability partners or groups help keep you on track by providing encouragement and gentle reminders.
How do you recommend someone find an accountability partner?
Look for friends or colleagues with similar goals. Online communities can also be great places to connect.
That's helpful. What are some common motivation killers people should watch out for?
Negative self-talk, perfectionism, and lack of clear goals are big ones.
How can someone overcome negative self-talk?
By consciously challenging negative thoughts and replacing them with positive affirmations.
What role does visualization play in motivation?
Visualizing success helps create a mental image that inspires and guides your efforts.
Can you guide us through a simple visualization exercise?
Certainly. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and picture yourself achieving your goal. Feel the emotions and see the details clearly.
That sounds powerful. What about motivation for language learning, since our listeners are here to improve English?
Language learning requires consistent practice, so finding enjoyable ways to engage, like watching movies or reading books in English, helps maintain motivation.
How can learners stay motivated when progress feels slow?
Celebrating small milestones, like understanding a new phrase or holding a conversation, keeps motivation alive.
Do you have tips for creating a motivating study environment?
Yes, a quiet, comfortable space with minimal distractions makes a big difference.
How important is setting deadlines in staying motivated?
Deadlines create a sense of urgency and focus, but they should be realistic to avoid burnout.
Burnout is a real concern. How can someone avoid it while staying motivated?
Regular breaks, self-care, and balancing work with fun activities are essential to prevent burnout.
Jacob, this conversation has been incredibly rich. Let's explore how motivation intersects with mindset next. What do you think?
I'm excited to dive into that. Motivation and mindset are deeply connected.
Great, let's keep going. So, Jacob, when we talk about mindset, what do you mean exactly? How does it relate to motivation?
Mindset is basically your attitude or mental framework about yourself and the world. It affects how you respond to challenges and whether you stay motivated or give up.
That makes sense. I've heard about fixed mindset and growth mindset. Can you explain those?
Absolutely. A fixed mindset means you believe your abilities and intelligence are static, like you're born with a certain level and that's it. A growth mindset is the opposite. You believe you can improve through effort and learning.
So, if someone has a fixed mindset, how does that impact their motivation?
They might avoid challenges or give up easily because they fear failure or think they can't change. That kills motivation. But with a growth mindset, challenges become opportunities to grow, which fuels motivation.
Interesting. How can someone start shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset?
It starts with awareness, recognizing your fixed mindset thoughts and then actively challenging them. For example, instead of thinking, I'm just bad at English, say, I can improve with practice.
That's really empowering. Do you have any exercises to help develop a growth mindset?
Yes. One is to keep a learning journal where you write down what you've learned from mistakes or challenges. Another is to praise effort over outcome, focus on progress rather than just success.
Praising effort is important. Sometimes people only celebrate results and ignore the hard work behind it.
Exactly. Celebrating effort encourages persistence, which is key for motivation.
What role does self-talk play in mindset?
Talk is critical. Negative self-talk reinforces a fixed mindset and lowers motivation. Positive, growth-oriented self-talk boosts confidence and perseverance.
Can you give examples of changing negative self-talk?
Sure. Instead of, I can't do this, say, I'm learning and I'll get better. Instead of, I'm not smart enough, say, I'm improving step by step.
That's practical advice. How about setbacks? How should a person with a growth mindset approach setbacks?
They see setbacks as feedback, not failure. They ask, what can I learn from this? And then try again with new strategies.
So, mindset is really about the stories we tell ourselves.
Yes, our internal narrative shapes our motivation and actions.
What about external influences? How do people's environments affect mindset and motivation?
Environment matters a lot. Supportive people, positive feedback, and inspiring role models help cultivate a growth mindset. Toxic environments can reinforce a fixed mindset.
How can someone create a positive environment if their current one isn't supportive?
Seek out communities or groups with similar goals, whether online or offline. Find mentors, join clubs, or follow motivational content.
That's great advice. Now, let's talk about motivation techniques you find effective.
I'm a big fan of the Pomodoro technique, working in focused bursts with short breaks. It helps maintain energy and motivation.
How long is each Pomodoro session?
Typically 25 minutes of work, then 5 minutes break. After 4 sessions, take a longer break.
That sounds manageable. What about motivation boosters during those breaks?
Stretching, deep breathing, or a quick walk work well. Avoid checking social media, which can distract.
Any tips for staying motivated when working alone?
Set clear goals, track progress visually, and reward yourself for milestones. Also, schedule work times like appointments.
Rewards sound fun. What kind of rewards do you recommend?
Something simple like a favorite snack, a short episode of a show, or a relaxing activity.
Do you think motivation comes more from intrinsic or extrinsic factors?
Intrinsic motivation, doing something because you enjoy it or value it, is more sustainable. Extrinsic motivation, like rewards or recognition, can help but isn't always lasting.
How can listeners find or increase intrinsic motivation?
By connecting tasks to personal values or interests, making activities enjoyable, and focusing on the meaning behind what they do.
Can motivation fluctuate daily?
Absolutely. Everyone has highs and lows. The key is to build habits and systems that support motivation even on low energy days.
Speaking of habits, how important are routines in maintaining motivation?
Routines create structure and reduce decision fatigue, so they're very important. They make motivation less reliant on willpower.
How do you build a new habit?
Start small, be consistent, and attach the habit to an existing routine like brushing teeth, then reviewing vocabulary.
That's called habit stacking, right?
Yes, it's very effective.
Jacob, this conversation is packed with wisdom. Let's explore specific motivation challenges our listeners face with learning English next. What do you think?
Perfect. Many learners struggle with consistency and fear of speaking. Let's dive into that.
Great. So, Jacob, why do you think consistency is such a big challenge for English learners?
I believe it comes down to habits and mindset. Without a clear routine, it's easy to get distracted or feel overwhelmed, so people skip days and lose momentum.
That makes sense. How would you recommend someone build consistency in their English learning?
Start small. For example, commit to just 10 minutes a day rather than trying to study for hours right away. Consistency beats intensity in the long run.
That's encouraging for beginners. What about motivation dips? How can learners push through when they feel unmotivated?
Remind yourself why you started. Also, mixing up your learning methods can help. Try listening to podcasts, watching movies, reading books, or chatting with friends.
Variety definitely keeps things interesting. What about the fear of speaking? That's a common problem for many learners, right?
Yes, fear of making mistakes or being judged often holds people back. But making mistakes is essential for learning.
How can learners overcome that fear practically?
Start with low-pressure situations. Practice speaking alone first, maybe recording yourself. Then try speaking with a friend or tutor who is supportive.
Are there specific exercises that help build speaking confidence?
Role, playing daily scenarios, practicing common phrases, and using language apps that focus on speaking can all boost confidence.
That's helpful. How important is feedback in improving speaking skills?
Feedback is crucial, but it must be constructive and encouraging. Negative feedback can kill motivation, but helpful guidance builds skills.
How can learners find good feedback without feeling discouraged?
Choose teachers or partners who focus on positive reinforcement. Also, self-assessment can help. Listen to your recordings and notice progress.
Self-assessment sounds empowering. What about vocabulary? Many learners say they forget new words quickly.
Spaced repetition systems, like flashcards reviewed over increasing intervals, are scientifically proven to help with retention.
Can you recommend any apps or tools for spaced repetition?
Anki and Quizlet are popular and effective. Also, making your own flashcards with example sentences helps.
That personal touch definitely makes learning stick. What about grammar? Some learners find it boring or difficult.
True, but grammar is the backbone of language. Instead of memorizing rules, learn grammar through context, reading, and listening to real examples.
Immersion, basically.
Exactly. The more you see and hear grammar naturally, the easier it becomes.
That's great advice. How can learners practice immersion if they don't live in an English-speaking country?
Use media, watch English movies, listen to music, read articles or books. Join online communities where English is spoken.
Speaking of communities, how important is social interaction for language learning?
Very important. Using language socially reinforces learning, builds confidence, and makes the process fun.
What about shy learners who struggle to find conversation partners?
Online language exchanges or apps like HelloTalk or Tandem are great because they allow practice at your own pace.
Those platforms can also connect people worldwide, right?
Yes, you can find native speakers and fellow learners from anywhere.
Jacob, what do you think about the role of culture in language learning?
Culture and language are deeply connected. Understanding culture helps you use language naturally and understand idioms or humor.
So, learning about English-speaking cultures can enhance language skills.
Definitely. It makes learning richer and more meaningful.
What resources do you recommend for cultural learning?
Documentaries, travel shows, books on culture, and even virtual tours can expose learners to cultural nuances.
That sounds fun. Any final tips for learners trying to stay motivated long term?
Set realistic goals, celebrate small wins, and remind yourself why learning English matters to you personally.
That personal connection is so important. Jacob, this has been an amazing discussion full of practical advice.
Thanks, Sophia. I hope listeners find these tips useful and stay motivated on their English journey.
Absolutely. And listeners, remember, learning English is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep going.
Exactly one step at a time.
We'll continue exploring more language learning tips in future episodes. Until then, keep practicing and stay positive. Jacob, since we talked about motivation, I'm curious, how do you personally stay motivated when learning or improving a language?
That's a great question, Sophia. For me, it's all about setting new challenges. When I reach a goal, I immediately set another one that pushes me just a little further.
Can you give an example of a recent challenge you set for yourself?
Sure, recently, I challenged myself to watch an entire English film without subtitles. It was tough but rewarding because it improved my listening skills.
That sounds like a great way to train your ear. Do you have any tips for learners who want to try that, but find it too difficult?
Start with something simpler, like a TV show episode or a short video with subtitles. Then gradually reduce your reliance on subtitles as you get more comfortable.
Makes sense to build up gradually. What about reading? How do you encourage learners to incorporate reading into their routine?
I always suggest picking topics you enjoy. If you like sports, read sports articles. If you like cooking, find recipes in English. Interest keeps you engaged.
That's a good point. Learning should be enjoyable. Do you recommend any specific types of reading material?
Short stories, news websites with simple language, blogs, or even comics. The key is to find something you want to read, so it doesn't feel like homework.
That will definitely help people avoid boredom. Switching gears a bit, what about writing practice? Many learners neglect writing because it feels harder.
Writing can be challenging, but also very rewarding. I recommend starting a journal. Write a few sentences every day about your day or thoughts.
That sounds manageable and useful. How should learners get feedback on their writing?
Joining language forums or communities like Lang8, where native speakers correct your writing, is very helpful.
Great advice. What role do you think technology plays in modern language learning?
It's huge. Apps, online courses, video calls, speech recognition, all these tools make language learning more accessible and interactive.
Are there any new tech trends in language learning that excite you?
AI-powered tutors and chatbots are evolving fast, giving instant feedback and personalized lessons, which can be a game changer.
That's fascinating. Do you think technology will eventually replace traditional language teachers?
I don't think so. Technology complements teachers, but human interaction and motivation are irreplaceable.
That balance is important. Jacob, what's one common mistake you see learners make, and how can they avoid it?
Many learners focus too much on perfection and get afraid to speak or write. My advice: accept mistakes as part of learning and don't let perfectionism hold you back.
Wise words. How can learners build a healthy mindset around mistakes?
Celebrate mistakes as opportunities. Keep a mistake journal to track errors and learn from them instead of fearing them.
A mistake journal. That's a neat idea. Finally, Jacob, how would you recommend learners measure their progress effectively?
Use multiple methods, test scores, how easily you understand movies or conversations, and your ability to express ideas. Progress isn't just numbers.
So, it's a mix of objective and subjective measures.
Exactly. Sometimes the feeling of confidence is the best progress indicator.
Jacob, thanks for sharing so many insights and practical tips today. It's been an enriching conversation.
Thank you, Sophia. I enjoyed it a lot, and I hope our listeners feel inspired to keep learning.
Absolutely. And listeners, keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, every small step counts on your English learning journey. Jacob, since we covered so many practical tips, what would you say is the biggest motivation boost for learners when they feel stuck?
That's a great question, Sophia. When learners feel stuck, I often recommend they try something completely different, like switching to a new topic, trying a new method, or even taking a short break to recharge.
So, Mixing things up can refresh motivation.
Exactly. Sometimes monotony causes burnout. A fresh approach brings new energy and excitement.
What about using music or podcasts in English as a motivational tool?
Those are fantastic. Music helps with pronunciation and rhythm, while podcasts expose learners to natural speech and culture.
Do you have favorite podcasts or music genres you'd recommend?
I enjoy storytelling podcasts and pop music with clear lyrics. For learners, slower, paced podcasts are better at first.
That's a smart tip. Let's talk about conversation practice. Many learners feel shy or nervous. How can they build confidence to speak?
Start small. Practice with yourself in the mirror, record your voice, or talk to language exchange partners who are patient.
Language exchange partners, that's a great idea. How do you find reliable partners?
Websites like Tandem and HelloTalk have communities of learners and native speakers willing to practice.
And what's your advice for overcoming fear of making mistakes in real conversations?
Remember that making mistakes is natural. Most people appreciate the effort, and every conversation is a learning opportunity.
Encouraging mindset again. Do you think joining clubs or groups focused on English can help?
Definitely, social groups, book clubs, or online discussion forums build community and provide support.
How important is it to set long-term versus short-term goals in language learning?
Both are important. Short-term goals keep you motivated day to day, and long-term goals give you a vision to work toward.
Could you give an example of a good short-term and long-term goal?
Sure, short-term could be learning 10 new words a week, and long-term might be holding a 30-minute conversation with a native speaker.
That makes the process less overwhelming. Let's talk about cultural understanding. How does culture tie into learning a language?
Culture is essential. Understanding cultural context helps you use language appropriately and appreciate idioms, humor, and customs.
How can learners immerse themselves in the culture of English speaking countries?
Watching movies, reading books, following social media influencers, or even cooking traditional dishes helps create a cultural connection.
It sounds like language learning is much more than grammar and vocabulary.
Absolutely. It's about connecting with people, ideas, and different ways of thinking.
Jacob, thank you again for your thoughtful insights. I'm sure our listeners are getting tons of value from this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure, Sophia. I hope everyone listening feels ready to take their English learning to the next level.
Remember, everyone, keep exploring, practicing, and enjoying the journey. That's the real key to success. Jacob, before we move on, let's talk about the role of technology in modern language learning. How do you see apps and online tools impacting learners today?
Technology has completely transformed language learning. Sophia, apps like Duolingo, Memrise, and Anki make learning more accessible and engaging than ever before.
Absolutely. Do you think technology can replace traditional classroom learning?
Not entirely. While technology is powerful, interaction with real people and immersive experiences are still crucial.
What about AI tutors and chatbots? Are they helpful?
They are excellent for practicing conversation and grammar exercises anytime, anywhere. Plus, they provide instant feedback.
That instant feedback must really help with correcting mistakes quickly.
Exactly. It keeps learners motivated and prevents the reinforcement of errors.
Speaking of errors, what's your advice on balancing correction with encouragement during practice?
It's important to correct gently and focus on progress rather than perfection. Celebrate small wins to keep confidence high.
Such a positive approach. Now, what about incorporating English learning into daily routines?
I always suggest labeling household items with English words, thinking in English during daily tasks, or narrating your actions.
That sounds like a great way to build vocabulary naturally.
Yes, and it makes learning seamless and fun without adding extra pressure.
What's your take on using social media for learning English?
Social media is a double-edged sword. It offers great content, but also a lot of slang and informal language, which might confuse beginners.
So, moderation and choosing the right content is key.
Exactly, Sophia. Following educational pages and engaging with native speakers in a respectful way works best.
Let's switch gears and discuss motivation again. How can learners stay motivated over the long haul?
Setting realistic goals, tracking progress, rewarding yourself, and finding a community for support are all vital.
Community support sounds very helpful. Any recommendations on how to find or build such communities?
Local meetups, online forums like Reddit's language learning subs, or even virtual clubs work wonders.
Thanks, Jacob. Before we pause here, could you share a personal story about a challenge you overcame while learning English?
Sure, early on, I struggled with pronunciation, especially certain vowel sounds. I practiced daily with tongue twisters and recordings until it improved.
That's inspiring and shows perseverance pays off.
Definitely consistency and patience are everything.
Perfect advice, Jacob. Let's keep this conversation going as we explore more ways to make English learning enjoyable and effective. Jacob, since pronunciation was a big challenge for you, what specific techniques or exercises would you recommend to our listeners struggling with this?
Great question, Sophia. I suggest starting with listening carefully to native speakers and mimicking their sounds. Shadowing, where you repeat immediately after hearing, is very effective.
Shadowing sounds interesting. Can you give an example of how to do it?
Sure, you can pick a short clip from a movie or podcast, play a sentence, pause, then immediately repeat, trying to match the rhythm and intonation exactly.
That sounds like a powerful way to improve both pronunciation and fluency.
Exactly. Another tip is to use tongue twisters regularly. They train your mouth muscles and improve clarity.
Do you have a favorite tongue twister you could share with us?
One I like is, "She sells seashells by the seashore." It's challenging but fun.
I've heard that one. It really forces you to enunciate clearly.
Yes, also, recording yourself and comparing with native speakers helps identify areas to improve.
What about stress and intonation? Many learners find that tricky.
True. Stress and intonation give meaning and emotion to sentences. I recommend listening to songs or speeches and trying to imitate their melody.
Songs are enjoyable and educational then.
Absolutely, and you can find lyrics online to follow along.
Moving to grammar, some learners feel overwhelmed by complex rules. How can they simplify grammar learning?
Focus on patterns and usage instead of memorizing every rule. Practice through examples and real communication.
Practice over perfection. Got it.
Yes, and use grammar apps or websites that provide instant exercises and corrections.
What about vocabulary? How can learners effectively expand their word bank?
Learn words in context, not isolation. Read stories, watch videos, and write sentences using new words.
Contextual learning helps with memory retention, right?
Exactly, also, grouping words by theme or topic makes recall easier.
How often should learners review vocabulary to avoid forgetting?
Spaced repetition is key. Review new words the next day, then after a few days, then a week, and so on.
Tools like Anki use spaced repetition, don't they?
Yes, they automate the process and make reviewing efficient.
Let's talk about reading skills now. Any tips for improving reading comprehension?
Start with simple texts, underline new words, summarize paragraphs, and ask questions about the content.
Active reading then, not passive scanning.
Exactly. And discuss what you read with others to deepen understanding.
Writing skills are often harder for learners. What advice do you have?
Start small. Write daily journals, emails, or social media posts. Use language learning apps that correct your writing.
How can learners practice writing creatively?
Try writing stories or dialogues based on your experiences or imagination.
That sounds fun and practical.
It is. Plus, it reinforces grammar and vocabulary naturally.
Jacob, this conversation is packed with invaluable tips. I'm sure listeners will find ways to apply these in their learning journey.
I hope so, Sophia. Remember, every small step leads to big progress over time.
Absolutely. Let's keep exploring more strategies to help learners thrive in English.
I'm ready when you are.
Let's dive into listening skills. What are some effective ways for learners to improve their English listening comprehension?
Great topic, Sophia. One effective way is to listen to a variety of English audio, everyday podcasts, movies, news, and songs help train the ear to different accents and speeds.
Does starting with slower or simplified English help beginners?
Definitely. Beginners should start with slower or learner-friendly content, then gradually move to more natural, fast-paced conversations.
How important is active listening, like taking notes or summarizing what you hear?
Very important. Active listening boosts comprehension and retention. Taking notes or summarizing helps engage the brain more deeply.
What about repeating or shadowing after listening to audio clips?
That's a powerful technique. It helps with pronunciation, rhythm, and understanding natural speech patterns.
Do you have recommendations for specific podcasts or channels that are great for English learners?
Yes, The English We Speak by the BBC ES and All Ears English are excellent. They offer clear, slow speech and practical vocabulary.
How can learners handle unfamiliar words or phrases they hear?
Don't get stuck. Try to understand the overall meaning from context, then look up the words later.
That's a helpful mindset to avoid frustration.
Exactly, Sophia. Language learning is about progress, not perfection.
Switching to speaking skills, what advice would you give learners who feel shy or nervous speaking English?
Practice is the best cure for nervousness. Start speaking with friends or language partners in low-pressure settings.
So, building confidence gradually is key.
Yes, and remember, making mistakes is part of learning. Don't fear them.
How can learners find conversation partners if they don't have any nearby?
There are many online platforms like HelloTalk, Tandem, and language exchange forums where you can find partners worldwide.
And joining local English clubs or classes helps too, right?
Absolutely. Community support can boost motivation and provide real-life practice.
For improving fluency, is it better to focus on accuracy or speed?
Both matter, but early on focus on fluency expressing ideas smoothly. Accuracy improves naturally with practice.
That's encouraging for learners worried about mistakes.
Yes, think of communication as the goal, not perfect grammar.
Before we continue, can you share any memorable moments or funny stories from your English speaking journey?
Sure, once I mispronounced sheet as a similar sounding word in an important meeting, which caused some laughter. But everyone was kind and it became a funny icebreaker.
That's a perfect example of why it's okay to make mistakes and learn with humor.
Exactly. Humor helps lighten the pressure.
Let's discuss cultural understanding next. How important is it in language learning?
It's very important. Language and culture are deeply connected. Understanding cultural context improves communication and avoids misunderstandings.
Can you give examples of cultural differences that learners should be aware of?
Sure. For instance, directness in English-speaking countries versus indirect communication styles elsewhere. Or idioms that don't translate literally.
So, learners should also study cultural norms and expressions alongside language.
Absolutely. It makes conversations more natural and respectful.
Jacob, this discussion is rich with insights. We have so much more to explore. Absolutely, Jacob. Let's talk about reading strategies. What methods do you suggest for learners to improve their English reading skills effectively?
Good question, Sophia. I always recommend starting with materials that interest you, whether it's news articles, novels, or blogs, because engagement is key.
So, passion and curiosity can make reading less of a chore.
Exactly. Also, it helps to read aloud sometimes. It improves pronunciation and reinforces word recognition.
That's interesting, combining reading and speaking practice together.
Yes, and don't hesitate to use tools like dictionaries or translation apps when you hit tough words, but try not to interrupt the flow too much.
How about reading speed? Should learners focus on speed or understanding?
Both, but it depends on the goal. For casual reading, speed can improve with time. For studying or exams, detailed understanding is crucial.
Are there any specific reading techniques you'd recommend?
Skimming and scanning are very useful. Skimming for the main ideas and scanning for specific information helps manage large texts.
Great tips. And what about writing skills? How can learners practice writing to improve their English?
Writing regularly is the best practice. Keeping a journal, writing emails, or participating in online forums encourages practical usage.
How important is feedback in writing practice?
Extremely important. Getting corrections from teachers, language partners, or even AI tools helps identify mistakes and improve.
Do you think learners should focus more on grammar or expressing their ideas when writing?
At the start, focus on expressing ideas clearly. Grammar can be polished over time. The key is to communicate your thoughts.
That's reassuring advice for learners afraid of writing because of grammar concerns.
Yes, confidence grows with practice and correction.
Let's talk about vocabulary building now. What's your advice on expanding vocabulary effectively?
Using words in context is the best way. Instead of memorizing lists, try learning words through reading, conversations, and practical usage.
So contextual learning beats rote memorization.
Absolutely. Also, grouping words by themes or topics can help retention.
How about technology? Any apps or resources you recommend for vocabulary learning?
Apps like Anki for spaced repetition, Quizlet for flashcards, and Memrise are excellent.
Perfect. What about idioms and phrasal verbs? They can be tricky for learners.
True, but essential for sounding natural. Learning them through examples and everyday conversation works best.
Shall we move to pronunciation? Many learners struggle with English sounds and stress patterns.
Yes, pronunciation is critical. Listening and repeating is key, along with focusing on word stress and intonation.
Do you have exercises or tips for improving pronunciation?
Tongue twisters are fun and effective. Also, recording yourself and comparing with native speakers helps.
That sounds practical. Finally, what motivational advice can you give to learners who feel stuck or discouraged?
Remember why you started, set small achievable goals, and celebrate progress. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
Wise words, Jacob. Persistence is everything.
Exactly, Sophia, enjoy the journey.
This has been an incredible discussion so far. There's so much valuable information packed in here.
Absolutely, Sophia. And what's amazing is that even just talking about all this motivates me. I can imagine how much it'll help listeners.
I feel the same way, Jacob. Now let's go deeper into listening skills. A lot of learners say they struggle to understand native speakers. Why do you think that is?
That's such a common issue. Native speakers often speak quickly, use contractions, slang, and idioms, all of which can confuse learners.
So it's not just about vocabulary or grammar. It's the way things are said.
Exactly. The rhythm, pronunciation, and even the context can be very different from textbook English.
How can learners train their ears to adapt to real spoken English?
One powerful way is to listen to podcasts like the English Hour, of course. But seriously, listening to a variety of accents and speaking styles regularly helps a lot.
I love that answer. And do you think subtitles are helpful?
Definitely at the beginning. Watching movies or series with English subtitles can train your brain to match spoken and written words.
Should learners eventually turn the subtitles off?
Yes, as they gain confidence. The goal is to win off subtitles and train pure listening comprehension.
That makes sense. What about shadowing? I've heard it's a great technique.
Oh yes, shadowing is fantastic. You listen to a short audio and try to repeat what you hear immediately, mimicking tone and pronunciation.
Almost like an echo.
Exactly. It sharpens your listening, speaking, and pronunciation at the same time.
And it also forces you to pay close attention to how things are said.
Right, and even 5 minutes of shadowing daily can have a huge impact over time.
Let's talk about speaking now. So many learners understand English, but are afraid to speak it.
That's the fear of making mistakes. Most people worry they'll sound silly or be judged.
How do you suggest learners overcome that fear?
First, accept that mistakes are part of the process. No one becomes fluent without making hundreds of them.
So true. I always tell people even native speakers make grammar mistakes sometimes.
Exactly. Also, speaking with non-judgmental language partners or tutors can really help build confidence.
What about talking to oneself in English? Is that effective?
Absolutely, it may feel odd, but narrating your actions or thoughts in English is great practice.
So, like, I'm making coffee. Now I'm opening the fridge.
Exactly. It turns your brain into an English thinking machine.
I love that. And it doesn't require another person perfect for shy learners.
Definitely. Combine that with voice recording and playback to self-correct pronunciation and structure.
Let's pivot to accent. Many learners want to reduce their native accent and sound more like a native speaker. Is that necessary?
Not at all. A clear and understandable accent is more important than trying to sound native.
So intelligibility over imitation.
Precisely. Clarity and confidence matter more than copying an exact accent.
But if someone wants to soften their accent, is it possible?
Yes, with consistent practice, especially with listening, shadowing, and using tools like phonetic exercises.
Are there specific sounds learners should pay more attention to?
It depends on their native language. But common tricky sounds include the difference between v and u, and stress patterns.
Ah, yes, stress patterns can completely change meaning.
Right, like record as a noun versus record as a verb. Stress matters a lot.
Speaking of which, do you think music and songs help in learning stress and rhythm?
100% music helps with natural rhythm, intonation, and even vocabulary recall. Plus, it's fun.
I love how music makes learning effortless. You just enjoy the lyrics and learn without realizing it.
Exactly. Especially if you sing along.
Jacob, this conversation is pure gold for our listeners.
I'm glad. And honestly, talking about language learning always brings new insights.
Me too. Let's continue, we still have a lot of ground to cover. Let's talk about consistency next. How important is having a daily routine?
Oh, it's everything. Even 20 minutes a day beats 2 hours once a week,
So frequency matters more than intensity.
right? The brain learns better through spaced repetition. That's why short, regular exposure works best.
What's your ideal daily routine for a learner?
I'd say 10 minutes of vocabulary practice, 15 minutes of listening or reading, and 10 minutes of speaking or writing.
That's just 35 minutes. Totally manageable.
Exactly. And if you have more time, great. But even that much makes a difference when done consistently.
What about weekends or off days?
Rest is fine, but try not to lose the habit completely. Even passive learning like listening to music helps maintain momentum,
That's such a good reminder. Learning doesn't always mean sitting down with a textbook.
right? Language is everywhere, you just need to tune into it.
Jacob, your practical tips are exactly what our audience needs.
Thank you, Sophia. I'm really enjoying this exchange.
Me too, Jacob. Every single point you've made so far has been so relatable and helpful for English learners at all levels.
I'm glad to hear that, Sophia. It's really rewarding to know that these tips might help someone break through their language barriers.
Let's dive into motivation for a bit. A lot of learners start with strong motivation, but then it fades. What do you think causes that?
That's a huge issue. Often, people start learning for a specific reason, an exam, travel, or a job, but once that goal seems far away or the progress feels slow, they lose steam.
So, how do you keep the fire burning?
One key strategy is setting small, achievable goals, like, I want to learn 5 new words today, or I'll speak for 5 minutes without stopping.
I love that. Micro goals feel doable and give you a quick sense of achievement.
Exactly, and celebrating small wins keeps you moving. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
What role do habits play in staying motivated?
Huge role. When learning becomes a habit, you no longer rely on motivation alone. You just do it like brushing your teeth.
That's powerful. I've noticed that the most successful learners are the most consistent ones.
Absolutely. Also, variety helps too. Switching between reading, listening, and speaking keeps things fresh and fun.
Let's talk about apps. There are so many language learning apps now. Which ones do you recommend?
I think it depends on the learner, but apps like Duolingo are great for beginners. Then you've got apps like Anki for vocabulary through spaced repetition.
And what about speaking?
Apps like HelloTalk or Tandem connect you with real people. Practicing with native speakers or other learners boosts confidence fast.
That social element makes a big difference.
Definitely. And then platforms like YouTube and podcasts like this one are amazing for real-world listening.
Speaking of which, do you think learners should mix media like podcasts, books, movies?
100%. Mixing media helps develop all 4 core skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
What about learners who feel like they're at an intermediate plateau?
The infamous intermediate plateau. It's real and it's tough. But the key is to push beyond your comfort zone.
Can you give an example?
Sure, if you've been listening to beginner-level content, switch to native-level shows or news. Try writing a journal entry daily or giving a short speech to yourself.
That sounds challenging, but I guess that's the point.
Exactly. The plateau happens because you're no longer being challenged. Progress hides in discomfort.
What an insight. Now, let's touch on cultural context. How important is understanding culture in language learning?
It's vital. Language doesn't exist in a vacuum, it reflects values, customs, and ways of thinking.
Can you share an example?
Sure. Take idioms. Break a leg. Sounds strange if you don't know it means good luck in theater culture.
Right. Or expressions like, it's raining cats and dogs.
Exactly. Cultural awareness helps learners interpret phrases and behaviors correctly.
And it makes the language come alive, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It adds depth and context, making communication more authentic and meaningful.
Jacob, your insights are making this one of our most valuable episodes yet.
Thanks, Sophia. I'm really enjoying this deep dive. It's the kind of conversation that sparks new ideas even for seasoned learners.
Let's keep going. We haven't even touched on pronunciation hacks yet.
Oh, yes, pronunciation is a game changer, and it's often overlooked.
What's your go-to tip for improving pronunciation?
I'd say record yourself speaking and compare it with native audio. Apps and tools like Forvo or Youglish are great for this.
I like the idea of self-recording. It shows you exactly what to work on.
Right? And don't be afraid to exaggerate the sounds at first, especially tricky ones like or word stress.
That helps retrain your mouth muscles, doesn't it?
Yes, pronunciation isn't just mental, it's physical. You're building new muscle memory.
What about tongue twisters? Are they helpful?
They're great for practicing difficult sound combinations and improving fluency.
Can we try one now?
Sure, how about she sells seashells by the seashore?
Okay, she sells seashells by the seashore. Woo, still tricky.
It is, but with repetition it gets easier and it's fun.
I love it. Jacob, let's explore how learners can practice English without traveling or living abroad.
Great topic. The internet has made it easier than ever. You can watch shows, read blogs, join online forums all in English.
So basically, you can immerse yourself from your living room.
Exactly. Change your phone language to English. Follow English-speaking creators. Think in English when planning your day.
It's like building a personal English bubble.
That's a perfect way to put it, Sophia. Create your own immersive environment.
Listeners, if you're not doing this yet, it's time to give it a try.
And once it becomes part of your lifestyle, fluency follows naturally.
That's so motivating, Jacob. Creating a lifestyle around English learning, that's a powerful mindset shift.
It really is. Once English becomes part of your daily routine, progress feels smoother, less forced.
Before we wrap things up, let's leave our listeners with a final boost of encouragement. What would you say to someone who's feeling stuck or discouraged?
I'd say don't give up. Everyone hits a wall, but every wall is climbable. Your journey is unique, and even small steps count. Stay consistent, stay curious, and most importantly, be kind to yourself.
Beautifully said. I love the part about being kind to yourself, so important and often forgotten.
Absolutely. Language learning isn't a straight line. There will be dips, but every dip is part of the bigger progress curve.
Well, Jacob, this has been an incredible episode. I've learned so much myself, and I know our listeners have too.
I've had a great time, Sophia. It's always a pleasure discussing language motivation and growth with you.
And to everyone tuning in, thank you for spending your time with us on the English Hour. Keep practicing, keep pushing, and remember, you're doing better than you think.
Keep going, learners, you've got this.
Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and stay speaking English.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.